Now, there are many aspects of the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Of course, Sidna Yusuf is unique because his father Yaqub is a prophet, and then his father Ishaq is a prophet, and then his father Sidna Ibrahim is a prophet. So the prophet Sidna Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he is al-Kareem, Ibn al-Kareem, Ibn al-Kareem, Ibn al-Kareem alayhi salam. So he comes from this lineal descent, direct lineal descent, straight from Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, whom we already spoke about. Now, I'm obviously not going to narrate for you the story. That would be, I think, boring. We could all read the surah, but I wanted to begin that way to encourage you to read the story, because it really is a beautiful story, and it's told in great. It's almost like a script. I mean, if somebody wanted to take that and make a movie out of it or make a series out of it, it's almost there, even with like directions and lighting, and it's so detail oriented. It's so rich, mashallah. Now, one of the interesting things about the story of Sidna Yusuf alayhi salam is how he gets to where he ends up. Okay, so he ends up, if you just think about, let's just jump to the end. He ends up basically, we kind of refer to him in English as like a prince of Egypt. I mean, he wasn't necessarily a prince, but he was mukarram. He was in the establishment, and he was the head of the granary, and he had a lofty position. From the outward, from the, looking at that, like, oh, this man made it, right? What did you do? Like, what's your story of success? If he had like a podcast today, like, what did you do to get to become successful? Well, his stories totally would not lead you to believe that he ended up like that, right? The story begins with him being thrown in a well by his brothers. So just think about how awesome that is. They talk about a story arc. Think about that story arc. How here, if like we were to start the movie, we would start with this little boy who was beautiful, because Sayyidina Yusuf was very handsome, alayhi salam, mashallah, and he was thrown in a well, and then he gets like bought basically into slavery, a type of slavery of servitude, by the Aziz of Egypt, to go into Aziz's house and Zulaykha's house, who's the wife of the Aziz. But when it starts out like that, you're probably thinking this kid's not going to make it. He's going to die, in this well. But he does, he makes it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the middle of the story of Sidna Yusuf alayhi salam, he gives us this very important concept of temkeen. Temkeen, unfortunately, is a word that extremists use, obviously in a false way. I'm not using it in that way. I'm using it in the Quranic way. وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah Ta'ala says, we have established Yusuf later in the story in the land. That's one of the most important, I think, aspects of the story. Barely pay attention to, because we're so distracted by how colorful the story is, which makes sense. But that's one of the things I wanted to highlight for you, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that gives us what we have. He places us where we are. The story starts out where the boy is thrown. Well, he has the dream, of course, but his brothers are jealous, so he's thrown in the well. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes that as a cause for him to have tamkeen, for him to be established. But he had to go through that rough patch, extreme rough patch, to become established. So even though in the very beginning it seems like he's not going to make it, he makes it into the house of the Aziz. And for the time being, he's safe, he has a home, he has luxury. And then again, he is faced with another challenge, which is the challenge of seduction. And that's another important part of the story. I mentioned a little while ago that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was very handsome. Of course, when you read in the commentaries of that, that beauty pales in comparison to the beauty of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But nonetheless, he was very, very handsome, mashallah. And part of that handsomeness comes from the nur of the nubuwwah, the light of the prophecy that's in his chest, that Allah Ta'ala has protected him from birth. As we believe as Sunni Muslims, that's what we believe with all of the Anbiya, that they're all saved and infallible. They're all protected and infallible from the beginning of their birth. So, we know the story of the Zulaykha. She tries to seduce Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. And, he says, Ma'adallah, I'm not going to do that. I fear Allah. وَلَوْلَا أَنْ رَأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّي. Allah says, were it not that he saw the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would have succumbed, which means he didn't succumb. He rejected from the beginning. So sometimes people, when they read the verse, they don't understand what's going on there, but he did not succumb to it. And that, unfortunately, is a very compromising situation. Of course, he didn't do anything to be compromised. He didn't put himself in the compromising situation. Allah Ta'ala wanted that to happen, so people like us could talk about it. But one of the things that we learn from that is that's an unfortunate aspect of life, and that there is seduction of different types. So this, it's a physical seduction, sexual seduction that he overcame. But many of us are seduced by power. Many people are seduced by wealth. Many people are seduced by sex, and the carnal drive, and he was just, no, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because he sees the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in front of him. And this is one of the categories that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidina Muhammad, that is alayhi salam, said, one of the people that is shaded on the final hour, on a day in which there is no shade, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst them. And there are many categories, by the way, but one of them is a person who is a man who is being seduced by a woman, and he says, no, I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.